like the legislators amendment after amendment after amendment. Put something in, take it out.
Peter, is this still on? Is that in or out? Look like there's a line.
Let's go ahead and get started. Start out with roll call.
Present.
Here. Here. All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to have a motion to approve the agenda or if we were just going to proceed.
I would like a motion to approve the agenda, and then we'll move on after that.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay, what?
This is something I think this board should be aware of, and then also trustee, right? Trustee Laird asked me a question about it, and so I think we need to potentially just talk about legislation that's happening down in Cheyenne.
We need
House
to
Bill-
approve the agenda first.
I'm amending it, trying to. House Bill 0288 that Jamie Line has submitted into the House that's going through. I think we should have a little discussion as this pertains to this board. So I'd make a motion to amend to include commissioner discussion on House Bill 0288.
Where are we at in order as far as that goes? Okay, so I'll second that.
All right, discussion.
Mr. Chairman or Commissioner Milne, would that be, that's not really a item 5, contracts, agreements or resolutions. Where does that come in on the agenda?
We'd have to create a new, probably a new section, or add it into 5 as a C. I don't know. Maybe,
Let's just add it into 5 and see.
Thank you.
That's easier. All right, all in favor of adding that to the agenda?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that's on the agenda.
thank you.
All right, we, approval of have a motion for approval of the minutes from January 8th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 8th.
Second.
All right, motion moved by Commissioner Coates, or Trustee Coates, and seconded by, Mr. Laird. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
The minutes from the January 8th meeting reflect me as the chairman. They also don't show me in attendance, but then it does say I voted in favor of something a little farther, but then I did have to leave after about 40 minutes. So I was just trying to figure out how. And on public comments, opening the floor to public comments. So I think maybe that was carried over from August, the previous meeting or something. So a couple changes I think would be warranted. Yeah, we could approve them next month.
We could do that.
Then,
Yeah,
then
okay, so we'll do that. We'll just, amend the agenda. Move those for next month and then we'll incorporate at that time. All in favor of doing that?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We'll just do that then. We'll just move them to next month. All right, proposed revisions to the parks rules. Let's see. Let's do these in order. We'll just go through and do them in order. I've got some. Let me see where they're at and we'll see if there's any, whatever comes up first. We'll take that one at a time if you guys don't mind. The items that are listed. Guess the first thing would be trying to find where oh, those are the bylaws that you have. These aren't the that's not the park rules.
We're looking at the regulations first, right?
Yeah, looking at the park rules and regulations, yeah. So, all right, with that,
I don't have the odd pages.
I think this is.
I will share mine with you guys. I will read what they are. Have you got page 4? I don't have anything on 5, so that'll work okay. Okay, on page 4, we need to change, my recommendation on I is a projectile instead of projectiles. Because if you're shooting a single arrow or something, a single object, it's down on the last line in I, under firearms and projectiles.
Sub-I
Yep, just change, yeah, under,
or whatever
yeah,
it
it's
is.
under.
Like sub-I.
Section 3,
Just above golf carts.
yeah. Yeah. It'd be a projectile instead of projectiles. Does anybody have a problem with that? Okay. Just grammatical. Then on the next one,
Was there anything on 3? He's got the whole pack.
Next month.
Oh, odds are next month. Outstanding.
I didn't have anything on 3. That was the first one that I had in my changes. That was the first one that I had.
Oh, okay. Anything on 5?
No, nothing on 5. Nothing on 6. Nothing on 7. Down on 8, page 8, number E is repetitive. That's also listed in a different place. Think so. 6E.
So
6E. No, 70.
7E
No, you're right.
and 9E are both similar.
Yeah, they're the same thing. They basically say the same thing, so.
The reason they're repetitive is one is specific to camping, another one is specific to all parks. And so that's why we had it in both places. So it's up to you guys, but that was the reasoning to have it in both sections.
All right. For discussion on that, do you guys believe that we need to have it in both places? If we have it in all parks, do we need to have it in camping?
I'd leave it in both personally.
Just because if some people say,
Okay, all right, well, we'll leave it in there then. Then. Okay, on 13, and this one should have been removed. They're on 13E, page 13.
We don't have it.
Okay, then we can just change it then, and I'll just let you guys know what change it to. No, we can go slow. Basically,
You got
because we,
No, that's 12.
This goes there.
we have a,
Next
yeah,
to 14.
Yeah.
yeah.
Where's 13?
Well, that's what I'm saying is,
Where's 13? It isn't on here.
can we circle back to 13?
Okay. Well, let me tell you what, basically what it amounts to. We will circle back to it. We'll come back to it in a minute.
Error.
But basically, we
All
say that you can
of our
you can
sheets.
bow fish down below, but up here it says that you can't use a bow or archery or any projectile, any firearm or anything else. So because we say that you can do it within what the game and fish regulation is, I would say one of the comments in there was to be except for the fishing use with a bow. So that is covered and it just corresponds with what's below. And the other section is that, and it should have been stricken from the record last time around. We're talking about the distance 400 yards and an exclusion of boat ramps, public roads, designated trails, and parking lots. And instead, what we did was put within any concession, develop concession area. So basically, if it's a campground or anything like that, but we'll come back to that. I'll let you guys get it and read through that. So we'll come back to that one.
Okay, can you repeat all that?
Yes. Okay. Go to 13
Mhm.
on E. In H, it allows bow fishing for non-game fish is allowed where permitted by Game and Fish Department. So we need to put an exclusion up under section E that allows for bow fishing those locations.
So what do you want it to say? I guess, I'm sorry.
What I have written in, and we can change this, is except for fishing, the use of a bow or firearm or other projectile device as prohibited within 400 yards of any developed public use facility or active area, including but not limited to picnic areas, campgrounds, private cabins, and concession area. And then strike out boat ramps, public roads, designated trails, and parking lots.
Do you have it in front of you? I'm horrible with audio learning. Can I see it?
Yeah. And that second part should have been struck. last meeting, but it slipped through since we were going through everything pretty fast on the screen.
So you wanna allow projectile fishing? Came up with a new term there. Projectile fishing,
As allowed by the Game and Fish Department.
within the boat ramp and public areas?
Well, it says with 400 yards, and so if you're, there's a lot of, the Game and Fish Department already has regulations
Mm-hmm.
that, so basically all we're doing is just adopting what their regulations say. If they change those and say you can't do it within a certain distance,
But
And you
we're still exempting those public areas, boat ramp, the kiddie pool, the sandy beach, the et cetera, et cetera.
Fish at the kiddie pool?
It's projectile fishing, not boat fishing.
well, it's,
I like my new term.
Glad you're happy with yourself.
I'm always happy with myself, one way or the other.
if you,
No,
if you guys got a better way of wording that, I'm all for it. But I'm just saying that we need to make it so that, you know, if you're bow fishing, which is allowed by the Game and
right,
Fish
right, right. No, I get what you're saying, and I'm not opposed to that at all. It seems it feels clunky in how it's worded.
I have no, I'm not disagreeing
No,
with you.
I-
That's the reason why I'm saying
Hey,
if you
get the attorneys to draft.
if you got better verbiage for that, I just,
Except for we still need that exclusionary zones, those zones so that kids aren't stepping on, fishing spikes on ends of tips of arrows.
They have to be so many yards away from all of that.
well,
that's
the Game and Fish Department does have
Yeah.
regulations as far as that goes, as far as where you can and can't do it.
So
And so,
we just adopt their rule, don't we?
well, that's the easiest way to do it. And we did do that right below. But we need,
They trap us
but
anyway.
we're contradictory by saying that you can't do it above. And then you turn around and say you can below. So that's where,
Yeah, no, I'm cool with it, as long as. I don't see projectile fishing in here. It's not.
So instead of changing E, why don't we just add to H on that one, where it says bow fishing for non-game fish is allowed, where and when permitted by the Wyoming Game and Fish Department, and otherwise regulated by these rules. This subsection exempts bow fishing from blank out of E, whatever you like out of that. If that works for you or not.
as long as
Or
we,
just try to
as
clean
long
it
as
up.
as long as we authorize it,
Yeah, I think
that's basically all I'm asking is to make sure
Yeah.
that we don't have contradictory statements saying that in one place it says you can't do it, and then right below it says you can.
right.
So
I think
that's all.
I think we can clean it up. Maybe under H is the best place that way. Jim's correct assessment of the clunkiness of it is kind of taken out, and it's more explicit into that what you can and can't do there.
Well, I did. That's why I remember what I was thinking.
No, I agree with you. So I think we can work that wording.
Yeah, just, the intent's there, just need to wordsmith.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot else, so if you guys. And then strike the boat ramps, public roads, designated areas and parking lots out. So. Peter, have you got any ideas on verbiage on that, on how to? It's E on how to include bow fishing in that, since it's listed below in H, or if we can just use H and then put an additional paragraph or statement on that saying these. Well, we kind of have that. That's kind of what it says. Yeah. Yeah, but up here, because you're not allowed to use any, go ahead. Okay.
So this has been in there for a while, and really wasn't much change to it. The way I read section 13H, it says, you know, this boat fishing is allowed where and when permitted by the Game and Fish Department and as otherwise regulated by these rules. So it's also regulated by 13E, which says you can't do it within 400 yards of a cabin, a public structure, and whatnot. So it's,
In some of the areas, that's gonna exclude large.
yeah, Alcova, it'll exclude quite a bit of it.
Well, that's what that's Alcova and even Pathfinder, if you're down there along the dam because you're close to a picnic area, if you're, down there in that area, there's a lot of those areas that would exclude, or even if you're over at Bishop's Point, if you're, if you're shooting carp.
So I guess you gotta look at it as how to write the rules without going into finite detail, because obviously we don't want bow fishing or even spear fishing underwater at a public swim area at Sandy Beach or around somebody's dock for their cabin. So, where do you set that definitive line? Is it 100 yards? Is it 400 yards? Or do you just let it go? People are going to do it anyways. There's lack of enforcement on this, but we need to have some kind of rule to enforce it if there is a hazard.
Jim?
So, just referencing our experience, it's easier to go through the park rules and write things and enforce things through the park rules than it is to dig sometimes through the little black statute book that you carry around with you, trying to figure out what the bond schedule, or looking at the bond schedule for the game and fish rules. If it's in the park rules, yeah, we can, if we reference game and fish, cool, they could be written or enforced either way. But I'm just saying, as somebody trying to get things done and go forward, it's easier to have that one source where you can, here you go, and explain why they can't do it and get them going.
Yeah.
So I think we need, if you want to have both, that's cool. But I definitely probably want to keep what we have in here as well for ease of enforcement.
Yeah,
Okay, I thought we were kind of deviating a little bit, so
no,
I just wanted to.
no, I would like to make sure that we have it clear that you can, and right now, to me, this is a deviation because the game and fish rules are different than what we're saying here as far as bow fishing.
So what do the game and fish rules say a distance within a public facility for bow fishing?
Basically, it's not a public facility. Basically, it's boat ramps. You can't fish within a certain distance of a boat ramp or a launching point or something like that, but it doesn't have anything to do, it doesn't say anything to do about campground areas or picnic areas or anything like that. They don't say anything about that. It's strictly going to be related to boat ramps or loading or unloading areas.
Mr. Chairman, I'd suggest then that probably whoever wrote the bills or the law for the game and fish, they're worried about fins and fur, not so much as the public out there walking around potentially stepping on an arrowhead or potentially getting stuck by whatever somebody's using for the projectile fishing. So that's where I imagine the campgrounds and the beaches and swim areas are being referenced for us, where game and fish, honestly, they probably don't care about that.
Can we add another line in there down at the bottom that basically says that what are the areas that we're really concerned about? They're campground, they're going to be the boat ramps and the fishing area or the swimming areas, correct?
Right, which is every beachfront at every campground that we have. And so that's where, the 400 yards, that was that was intended for, you know, use of firearms. Like, for example,
Right.
Alcova, you're allowed to duck hunt in the middle of Alcova.
Right. And-
But you
and
have to
what-
be within 400 yards of any other facility.
Well, and a prime example of this is like at Black Beach. If you go across the bay and you're fishing on the east side, there is no beach over there, but you're still closer than 400 feet or 400 yards from the boat ramp or the camping area.
So I go back to, we have to determine a specified yardage for enforcement. So we could specify each specific area, or we could change 400 yards to 200 yards or 50 yards, whatever this board of trustees feels, would suit the rules best. Just like trustee Milne said, you know, law enforcement needs a definitive line here. So that, you know, if somebody's 25 yards from a campground and they're bow fishing, they're breaking the rules. But if they're 405 yards from it, they're not breaking the rules. So, I mean, obviously we could change that distance to whatever.
Well, if we just changed it and we put bow fishing is allowed within 200 yards and left the rest of it like it is, up in E,
Okay.
would that work?
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, how do you guys feel about that? That way it's not, well, that's basically what it says right now, but that's a long way. As far as bow fishing, because bow fishing, you're generally standing on the front of the boat or something like that, and you're shooting straight down. It's not like you're launching the arrow very far. If you're bow fishing, you're not shooting very far. It's not like hunting. You're generally shooting 5 yards right out in front of you or less. It's very close range, and you're shooting down. Well, you're going to hit the end of your line, and it's going to stop. Well,
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Michael, how much duck hunting is going on out there?
You know, I haven't done it personally for 30 years. I think there's a little bit. I don't think it's high volume, and it's mostly October, November before the ice comes in. But, you know, typical duck season, it's not during high recreation season.
So would we be able to maybe differentiate between hunting with firearms and bow fishing? Bring the bow fishing down a little bit to a reasonable distance, and then designate a time frame for the hunting of out there.
Yeah, we, you know, simply if we revise section 13H to say bow fishing, and I would expand it to say and spear fishing,
yeah.
underwater spear fishing is allowed where and when permitted by the Wyoming Game and Fish Department.
If we do that at the bottom of E,
And that, because I believe they have a distance in their
they
regulations.
do.
I don't know what.
They have everything in there.
But is that just for boat docks and ramps,
No, they have it. They have it related to other things too.
campgrounds?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about campgrounds, but they do have.
Swimming areas?
They do have other things that are.
Because with the bow fishing, spear fishing, whatever, I'm just worried about the arrowhead, spearhead, whatever.
Right.
That
Well,
somebody doesn't step on it, it gets lost, whatever, and then little tyke out there steps on it, and gets tetanus or whatever it would be.
how about if we just add that bow fishing is allowed within 200 yards of the above facility?
Well, and that's what I said.
That way it covers that,
Right.
and we're good.
Bring
Yeah.
that distance down, and then the hunting, maybe
It's separate.
have it as a separate item.
Yeah, just a separate sentence down there at the bottom of E.
Me and my eagle eye.
Okay, so basically what we'll do is we'll put bow fishing down at the end of that. We'll put bow fishing is allowed within 200 yards of developed area, public use areas, uh, including but not limited to picnic areas, campgrounds, private cabins, and concessionary. Huh? Greater. So if we put greater than 200 yards. Yeah, okay. Does that work for everybody? Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I knew my verbiage wasn't very good in there, but like I said, it was just to stimulate the gray matter in there to get it working, so. Those are the only items that I had on the rules. Does anybody else have anything else in the rules that we need? I think we had those pretty well hashed out.
Mr. Chairman, I have some items. As I'm going through, some are typographical with respect, or for example, page 4, golf carts needs to be indented as a paragraph. And I don't know what the basis in item K for the size of the group being 10 or more. So maybe somebody can enlighten me on why it's 10 or more rather than 5 or more or 15 or more. Is there a reason for that? Is that just what everybody's comfortable with?
Michael,
Honestly, that has been defined, I think, clear back to rules that were set in 2016. I really didn't put much thought into that. Honestly, if you think about a campsite, you probably don't have more than 10 people staying in one campsite. So that, I think that may have been how this was defined in the past. But I don't have any set logic personally as to why a group should be defined as 10 or more.
Well, you're the expert. And so if you think 10 is still the appropriate number, given your, what you've seen over the years, then I'm fine with it. I just didn't know if it was just the kind of thing it's always been that way, so we're keeping it that way, or if it's actually something that still fits.
I think the
based
number
upon-
works well.
Okay,
Because when you start to get 15, 20 people, they get rowdy. They make a lot bigger messes.
and a
so-
smaller number would be too
so-
inflexible.
Yeah, and so a 10, that kind of defines more groups into what you'd call a small group. And so I believe in other places, I believe in section 14 on page 14, we talked about 14D, Parks Director may prohibit the consumption and or possession of alcoholic beverages. If alcohol is sold, they gotta get a license from the county clerk's office. However, groups of 10 individuals or more must obtain written permission from the Parks Director to provide alcoholic beverages in the parks in all places but registered campsites. So if they're using a shelter and they got a group of 10 or more,
Okay.
they need to give us notice that, hey, we're serving some alcohol, so we have an understanding of what that party's like.
Okay, 10 is still a magic number for us, so that's fine. Going on to page 5. Overnight shall mean, and I don't know who's keeping, Michelle, are you trying to keep track of this? Oh, okay.
I am writing notes too,
Well,
so
but if we have somebody
Official.
appointed.
then we can
Okay, so
We can
turning the page.
look at
up.
each other.
Is there a silent feature on that?
This new phone, there is.
Well, for 2.5 years, it's been that phone.
changed the,
Okay.
they changed everything on me. Watch the video.
Changed.
Huh?
Only zones have not changed. 2.5
All
years
right.
now.
Overnight shall mean, this is overnight, shall mean occupying or otherwise being present upon. I think occupying is, I know occupying is a legal term of art, and so I think we should have it read occupying or otherwise being present upon, and then take out the word from. It doesn't work grammatically for it to be from any time, just any time between.
Say it one more time.
It should read, overnight shall mean occupying or otherwise being present upon a designated camping area anytime between a half hour after blah, blah, blah. Page 6. Earlier I had suggested that we also impose fees for county equipment time. And instead of outside costs, have it be any third-party costs or charges.
Under section 4B,
Yeah,
that last one.
yeah, so it would read, and I think grammatically it should be a fee may be imposed by the parks director, because I don't know who else it would be assessing it. Would it'd be you, right? So a fee may be imposed by the parks director of $250 per hour, comma, plus county equipment time and any third-party costs or charges.
I'd like to expand that a little bit from Parks Director to, what are we saying, law enforcement, peace officer, is that the term we use in here? Or peace officer. That way, whether it can be game and fish, or it can be the sheriff's office, or even highway patrol,
Okay,
can impose that.
okay, then, but would they be imposing it for use of county equipment or personnel? I'm not sure why YDOT would,
I guess you're,
That would be you. That would be you because it would be county equipment and you'd bill them accordingly.
so it could be,
So-
it could be parks director or designee.
okay, which could be the road and bridge superintendent.
That way, if one of your guys is,
Okay, that works.
turning to page 7, section 5, this is the unidentified flying objects. In page subsections H and I, UAS operator shall discontinue use. And I didn't know if we should have a basis for that, or if the parks director can be arbitrary and say, because I don't like that one's red and I only like camouflaged ones. I know that's not realistic, but typically I think you'd want to see some basis so that you could say, shall discontinue use upon park directors or peace officers' request if such use interferes with the quiet enjoyment or the public health, safety, and welfare.
Or becomes a nuisance.
Yeah,
I think we could say it all by just saying if it becomes a nuisance.
well, I mean, but that's both a statutory term and a common law term. Public health, safety, and welfare is always this thing that gives us a little more flexibility. So I think that's the best. And Michelle or Heather, anywhere in this document that it says public health, safety, and welfare, it needs to be in that order. In one case, at least, it says public safety, health, and welfare. So you might just pay attention to that on the final review. So I think that could be added to both subsections H and I of section 5.
Yeah, I believe trustee Nicolason that the intent of these were for, operators that have not permitted with the county to, fly their drones within our areas. We do have a drone permitting process and require their insurance and everything and have that approved, so, which is talked about in item G. So I believe that might have been what the intent of these were, but I understand your expansion of it and I agree with that.
Okay, thank you for shedding a light on that. On page 9, and this is more just a philosophical thing. Do we, shouldn't we be able to fine people if they spill gasoline or leave a gas or antifreeze, or when we go down to section 8, we have authorized places, restricted areas, the sewage lagoon. And then we have fires. We say people shouldn't be doing this, but then in some cases, I think it's important to say, and here's the penalty. And maybe you guys know these rules better than I do, but it seems like we need some teeth in some of these bigger, items, like whether it's hazardous waste or fires, or jumping and playing in the sewage lagoon. I don't know if kids do that.
I think one thing we could do is we could say, to put real teeth in it, you could be charged with a disposal, including any hazmat fees that are associated with that. That's where it gets real expensive real fast. So,
An example of this, it's a little bit different, but a few years ago, some individuals decided to yank one of our trees out of Okie Beach. The sheriff's office was able to find who they were, and we have been receiving court-ordered restitution in small incremental amounts for the last year on that. So, I'm sure there's probably some sort of statute that allows a fine from law enforcement for hazardous waste. I'm not sure, but yeah,
Or
I'm
for
open to any
fires.
teeth in this, yes.
Yeah, so it's just maybe we can't figure that out today, but maybe we can give some thought to whether, where, and how we want to have some teeth in this that might allow us to fine or, for some of the bigger violations.
well, if you said hazardous materials disposal, that takes care of that, because that includes your cleanup and getting rid of it.
Right,
So,
but it also talking about.
Yeah, and
So,
yeah, no, I think that's right. And I just wonder about fires. That's another one that if somebody's violating the fire, which up on the mountain, for example, would be important, then they ought to, pay a penalty for doing that rather than the slap on the wrist.
well, we've already got statutes that cover that when we have a fire ban on, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, it's not fire ban related. It's if they're violating these rules and it pertains to fire, then they shouldn't be violating the rules. So a $500 penalty or something like that, or a $250 penalty would be kind of the minimum appropriate thing, I think, to do. So I'm just throwing that out there. Page 10, item 9G, it says trespassed individuals. The decision of the board is final, and I didn't know if we needed to say except as permitted by Wyoming statute to the extent there's judicial review. Heather, I don't know if you have an opinion on that. I mean, it says it's final, and it may be, but it may not be.
Trustee Nicolais and we can look at that a little bit more. I don't know that we've looked at the potential for judicial review of that decision, but that's a good thing to look at.
I'd at least like to know the answer.
And there's two different things on here, and I think we need to clarify this. Is that we have places that you can't trespass according to statute that we have listed for safety reasons and things like that. And this is more talking about people that have been banned and they're trespassing back. Is that correct, Michael?
Yeah, I believe we can, the way I understand it from speaking with some law enforcement is, we can file trespass against them for breaking these rules and basically limit when they can come back.
Right.
so whether they're, just, you know, if any of these rules they break, we can submit them to trespass.
Which is, yeah, and that.
Not necessarily the unauthorized areas where they're not supposed to be.
Right, and that's what I was getting at. There are two different types of trespass that we're talking about. One is that they're not following the rules and we ban them from the parks because of what they did. The other one is where they're in an area that they're not allowed to be in, where they're trespassed because of that, because the signs say they can't be there. Yeah, so we have two different types of trespass in there, and I do think that we probably should identify which one we're talking about
Okay.
in there. Because if they're trespass for being in a place that they're not supposed to be in, that's a criminal offense, and that's not something that the board would have any say on. But if it's something that we kicked them off and they come back, then we would.
I think that's a little further down the line. I don't know what page that's on, so. Oh, the definition.
Let's go through it, if Peter's got anything else.
Just a couple,
But
things.
yeah, and then we'll go back, because it's easier to do it that way than it is to,
Paragraph H on section 9, timber may be removed. Special permission. People are always, telling me that my dad gave him permission to hunt out at the ranch. So, you say, well, is it in writing? So I think you ought to put written permission, whether it's an email or whatever. Because if your guys are out there, they might not know. Well, Michael told me. So I think it should say special written permission.
Okay.
Page 11, parcels of parklands may be closed permanently or for specified period of time to pets to protect wildlife. And then I think it should read, comma, adjacent landowner rights, comma, or the public health, safety, and welfare. Then it's, I think, sufficiently broad to cover any contingency that might warrant closure. Page 12. This is section 12 is fires. This is another one where I wrote, maybe we want to have the ability to fine somebody for a violation, but we don't need to solve that right now. Page 13. Grammatically on section 13J, trapping of animals is prohibited, comma, except for trapping performed by, or trapping performed and monitored by. So again, it just would read one sentence. Trapping of animals is prohibited, comma, except for trapping performed and monitored by Wine and Game Fish Department. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have now. Thank you.
well, I don't have page 13, so I don't know what happened. I know what you're talking about though, and we discussed that in the last one as well. I think that was one that we missed, just missed getting in here, because I know that was one that we talked about at our last meeting as well, so,
Great.
okay.
Section 16 on preservation of public property. That was another one that I wondered whether we would want to impose a fine for a violation of that. That's another one of those bigger, I don't know, more, that would be a more serious violation in my mind. Thanks.
Chairman, Trustee Nicolaizen, I think there are probably separate criminal statutes that would apply. In 189201, the maximum amount of fine that can be imposed for a violation of these rules is $100. It is considered a misdemeanor, but I think if there's separate criminal offenses that apply to the conduct within the park, they could probably be charged for that as well.
So what you're saying is we can charge anybody up to $100 for anything in here if they look the wrong way at us.
Yes,
Maybe we could go higher.
or the court can charge that, I should say. That would be the maximum criminal fine that
So-
somebody would face.
But what about our fees or our
I think that's, I'm sorry, I think that's the maximum criminal offense or criminal fine that somebody faces. I do think that we could try to impose a civil fine for,
And board, that's
Okay.
kind of specified in section 29 on page 27. It references a statute there about the $100 or not in prison for more than 30 days. I understand where you're going with stronger penalties, and I don't disagree with that. I just not sure.
So,
And DA has to say.
So, this would be like civil penalty kind of thing. An example of this we have out at the lake with the lot permits. There's a penalty clause in there that allows us, there's a financial penalty for first, second, and third offenses in there, that we can assess, for the permittee. So
Is that
I,
when they sign for the lease?
they've signed for that lease.
Lease it?
Yes, they have.
So.
So, is that kind of what you're looking at here is basically build our own penalty structure for these items? Okay. Okay.
You have any other? Okay, on 20, under Hell's Half Acre and E, we probably ought to strike the last portion of that since we struck it earlier as far as boat ramps, public ramps, designated trails and parking areas, because it covers that above that in the 400 yards from any public use, just so we're consistent. It's E on page 20, down it's the last sentence. Basically, we just copied and pasted that whole thing.
It's on
So
page 21 on the most recent set that we received. I don't know if you have a different,
whatever Hell's Half Acre is. So, well, okay. Anyway, it's that last sentence, and that's just to be consistent. To put the period after areas and then strike the rest of that sentence. Because we have it above it, that you can't do it within 400 yards. And like I said, that's just for consistency. I mean, what? That's why I said we can take it out of there. I'm pretty sure we don't have any out there. If we do, we're all gonna be in trouble. We're all gonna be in real trouble if we got a boat ramp out there. It's for out there sand surfing or something. So. All right, Dallas, is that all you had? Okay. Dallas, what did you have on page? Abandoned property, but
Because it ties in, you have to do it 1 and 2 under those, there's a nine on the line.
page 6.
Page 6. Section 4, so. And find a unintended motor vehicle.
I thought that came right out of statute.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe Lita
I think that's what.
found that, and made sure
Yeah. That's what
it's,
it
as it states, it is, not an exhaustive list of what constitutes an abandoned vehicle. But these are the highlights out of that statute.
This number 2 says any motor vehicle left unattended or unplanned on private property for more than 30 days without the oral or written consent of the owner or person in lawful possession or control of the property for more than 30 days. It says that twice. We're talking about 30 days after the expiration of the oral or written consent. So I'm just not tracking my brain.
I guess my question is, why are we saying anything on private property?
I believe that's how the statute reads, but, this could be, you know, if it's within an authorized area, an authorized area, my shop yard, and I agree to allow somebody to store.
You read that. How do you?
Well, an abandoned vehicle is gonna,
Day deal, 30 days.
well, the 5-day deal is if we just find an abandoned vehicle, we have a peace officer tag it, it's still there 5 days later, and then we can tow it. That's the way I understand that. Second one is,
It says and. When you read that, it's 5 days after this notice, and any motor vehicle left unattended for 30 days. It says 30 days again, so I'm trying to,
so that ties the two together.
two that don't belong together, it shouldn't be more, or I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense.
I guess I would have to refer to, legal to clarify that as to what that statute actually says, and if it's and, or if that just needs to be removed, and we can refine that.
Can we agree just to allow legal to look at that and adjust it accordingly?
So I believe Clerk Good has pulled up the actual statutory language here. That's for private property or
Yeah,
public?
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern about the use of the words private property in this section A. And so, maybe the easy way to just change it to public property. And written consent of the county instead of the owner or person in lawful possession or control of the property. I think probably somebody did take it right from statute, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about parks property, public property. So I think some modifications need to be made to that. But I also think we need a process if somebody's truck dies and they walk away from it because it's only worth $500 and it's up on the mountain or out at Hell's Half Acre or wherever. So we ought to be able to deal with the situation, but I don't think we're quite there on this language.
So what would you like to do? I understand the change to public county property, or you don't get rid of the private property stuff, but
This is one that, yeah, the private property, I don't understand that. The and does confuse it a little bit. I would send this portion, section 4A, in its entirety back to legal for a better, for legal and Michael to work together to come up with a better description of what they want to accomplish with this.
Heather, now can we, since we agreed to this and we're talking about a specific item, can we do kind of an email vote individually to make sure that it's okay if there's nothing associated with the change or anything like that on something like this?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think what I would propose that we do is once you've all gone through that and made your suggested changes, we can incorporate those into the draft. And then, if
Well,
nobody has any,
that's what I'm talking about, incorporating, send out basically what your edits are. And then if we all agree on that, then we can incorporate that in the draft.
yes,
That's what I'm asking.
yes, I think that would be fine. And then we'll post the amended proposed draft.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're on the record that is acceptable, that we can do that. So we don't have to have an official meeting to come back through and do everything. We can do it through. You can send it out, and if we approve of it individually, then that's okay.
Yes, and then if there's any changes that anybody identifies or something that was missed, we'll make those changes if they're identified and incorporate them into the working draft.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Sure, my simple thought on that is, any motor vehicle left unattended on public property without the written oral consent of the county for more than 5 days after a notice of intent to impound has been placed on the vehicle by a peace officer pursuant to statute
Is considered an abandoned
is,
vehicle.
yes, is considered abandoned vehicle. And then, and any motor vehicle left unattended or unclaimed on public property for more than 30 days without the written consent of the county for more than 30 days after the expiration of the written consent of the county. I think that cleans that up sufficiently to, I think the 30-day thing is written is much better than in that long period.
I'm fine with that. I think that clarifies that quite a bit. So. Good job. So, did you get all that, Heather?
It was a lot.
If you didn't, I'm sure Casey can share it with you.
We can get there.
All right. All right. Did you, anything else?
What is the difference between those two situations? 50,
If we have something parked out at the lake in our boat storage or something like that, then we have it legal and they can have it.
what's the difference? Unattended or unclaimed. Yeah, but they're both abandoned, so why would you ever wait 30 days? Because it already has been there 5.
Because you have,
My understanding of that is the 5 days is if we go out there, there's a vehicle parked there, we don't know about it, we mark it 5 days. If they have a written agreement with us, so say they have a trailer, but they've thus abandoned that, they're no longer paying rent, then we have to wait the 30 days after, that notice. Or the boat storage has a end of season date and you're supposed to have your boat trailer out of that area by that date. We're required to wait 30 days after the expiration of the written consent before we can consider that abandoned.
Mr.
With
Chairman,
that last clause that says after expiration of oral, you might start the sentence
Madam Clerk,
with that.
Mr. Chairman, there's a difference between abandoned and a storage. So if you have a written or oral consent, that would be considered the storage process. So if that's where the 30-day is coming in, it's not abandoned if you have a written or oral agreement to house it. A true abandon is if it showed up there and you weren't given permission to leave it there. That's what a true abandon is.
okay, so we need to add, what we need to do is put for stored motor vehicles.
Say that again.
For stored, in that second part, for stored motor vehicles left unattended or unclaimed on.
This whole statute is defining what an abandoned vehicle is, not a storage.
To Michael's point, what I'm saying is he's talking about after 30 days of written or oral permission.
Then they will be declared abandoned at that point. Is that what you're saying?
Somebody has a camping permit and then they just leave it there. They had written permission. So we'd have to wait 30 days to get it off of there.
I'm unsure. I mean, I do have that statement in there, valid camping permit is considered permission. But, once that permit expires, I would consider it to go under the 5 days. That's where I'd like to see that. But I see what you're saying, that, they had valid written consent because they had a camping permit. So does that require us to leave it there for 30 days?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Jim.
honestly, personally, I'd just drop 2. I'd drop that whole section of 30 days. Don't worry about it. Go off the 5 days. Because if you start looking at, then you're starting to, water's getting too muddy.
Getting muddy, yep.
And if people are leaving vehicles or whatever out there, yeah, it's gonna make camping a mess.
So if we just strike I out of that and leave I in there, I think that would be,
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, Mr. Chairman, if I may. It says in paragraph A, this is not an exhaustive list. So you leave A, you modify I as we discussed, you put a period after and is considered an abandoned vehicle or is considered an abandoned vehicle, period. Take out 2, take out a valid camping permit is considered permission, just because it's hanging out there and it's kind of confusing. And then 3, that's not really part of A, it's really B. It should be B, and then B should be C, and then you'd be good.
Mr. Chairman, just for a point of clarification, also, this is kind of a moot point since trustee Nicolasen's amendments, but the 30-day notice or the oral or written consent for an abandoned or unintended is on private property.
We were trying to kick it, we were trying to drag it over to public
Correct.
property. And guess what? The trustees can change this next year or something if they want to, if it needs.
So my other point that I brought up was that $250 an hour for you to charge to help somebody move something. I think it's an outrageous cost.
You think it's an outrageous cost?
I do.
So what would be an appropriate cost?
I don't know that, why would you have to be helping some wrecker service tow a car away? Don't you call the towing company up and have them come out and get the car? The guy has to deal with that bill. What would you need to be down there for?
If Michael and 3 of his guys have to be screwing around with this for half a day, that's a cost to the county. $250 an hour. Yeah, it's
What though?
high, but I guess
What are they doing? Screwing around doesn't make any sense to me. I need to know what they're gonna be doing to get to $250 an hour.
Well, if we have to, say there's an abandoned vehicle and it has to be loaded and hauled and stored in our yard, until it can be properly impounded, a lot of the, tow services are very hesitant, and I would be very hesitant as well to, hook onto a camp trailer that's set up. If it's locked, you don't know what's inside that's gonna fall, the slides are out, so it makes it difficult.
Well, why would you be getting rid of that?
Because they didn't pay their camp fees, they left it there for more than 5 days without paying,
Does that happen very often?
happens quite a bit, yeah.
And what do they do then? Come back and get it?
Sometimes if we can find them, I try to allow law enforcement to assist as much as they can on finding who the owner is and getting them in contact and getting it cleared out. But typically, in those cases, if I have to take a trip out there, that's an hour and a half round trip. I spend an hour out there dealing with it, getting license plate numbers, contacting the sheriff. So there's several hours of my time, let alone my staff documenting the vehicle being abandoned so that we're following the proper
My point
process.
is-
Commissioner Laird, what amount would you recommend? I know you've got a problem with the 250, but I haven't really heard what
I have a
hourly.
problem with charging if they're doing their job. They get paid by us to do this job. Why are we charging the public $250 an hour So if a cop arrests you, he can charge you $250 an hour for arresting you, taking you to jail?
I don't think that's the point. I think the point is these are salaried employees
Yeah.
that have other things they need to be doing for the public health, safety, and welfare. And if their time is redirected, it's hurting the county and all your citizens. And so,
But they get a salary to do this job. This is part of their job, I assume.
their job is not to babysit and take care of people's abandoned vehicles.
Well, that's why I suggest that maybe we make a deal with the towing outfit. They say this is an abandoned vehicle, we need it removed. The guy comes out and removes it.
There's still got to be oversight. You got to have an owner's rep on site every time.
Well, but
They're-
that's their job. They get a salary.
You're missing the point, which is they shouldn't
I'm
be
not
doing
missing
that.
the point unless you're gonna charge $250 an hour for any of our employees who do work that causes them to do work. This doesn't make
Mr.
any
Chairman.
sense to me.
So I don't, the 250 isn't necessarily for their salary or that the employee's getting it. It's compensation to the county for somebody else's misbehavior. It's like a civil penalty.
And the board, I believe this has been here since 2016. It was not raised. But in addition to the staff, you may have heavy equipment, fuel costs, operations, getting staff out on a weekend when they're not supposed to be working. So you have overtime as well, fuel to get there.
Why would you need to go do it on a weekend? You got
Some machine may be
You got
stuck
an
in
impound, you got an impound situation. You're not coming to get the car. So why not do it during working hours?
Because if
somebody's
it's a health,
parked in a
safety,
boat
and
ramp with
welfare
their
issue,
Boat stuck in
you
the
might
water.
have to take care of it. This says it may be imposed, not that it shall be. So I think we've got the Parks Director has discretion, and if it's just a half hour and he's already out at the lake anyway, it's not a big deal. So I think we just need to move on.
Well, it's a pretty hefty fee to charge somebody. And I'm trying to understand a situation where have you ever collected $250 an hour before from anybody?
Mr. Chairman,
I've never collected on this, no. But we also have a different operational standard in parks that we're not out there doing personal excess. If a tow truck can do this, we'll have a tow truck do it. If we have to do it, we will. But we'll wait. We'll be patient. Let their buddy come out with their pickup and get it moved out of the way or whatever. I'm not just gonna defer to this right away. This is just gives us some opportunity to collect the cost of operations.
I think we ought to just leave it like it is. Does anybody else disagree with that? Okay. So we'll leave that one like it is. So, anything else? On the first rule? Okay, going once? Go twice? Okay, Heather. We got that. We will move on to the bylaws. We'll be going over Peter's version of them.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just real quick.
Go ahead.
If we're starting with the version that I sent around, 2.13, my change said not fewer than 5 citizens. I think it would be fine to say not fewer than 5 nor more than, and I think 7 is a better number, but anyway, so I would offer that, basically putting that back in, either 7 or 9 competent citizens.
I personally think 5 is fine. That's my That's my feeling.
Mr. Chairman, there are some statutes that, like a board I was on, where the statute says they can have between 5 and up to 9 people.
That's exactly
it's a
what the statute
statutory
says.
Issue.
It says you can have your choice between no
Yeah.
less than 5, no more than 9. But I'm happy with 5. I'm fine with 5.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I kind of like 7 because it gives you a breadth of experience across the board. Remember, this board would eventually will become a board of grassroots citizens that the commissioners place in. So if you can get a little bit more breadth of experience, you don't get just 5 people from the mountain. You don't get just 5 people from the lake. You can get a bigger swath of the citizenry involved into the board. So I'd encourage us to look at a little larger than the 5, maybe a 7
How many
person.
How many boards have we got that have more than 5? I don't know of any.
Library, fair's 5.
Library doesn't have more than 5.
7. Okay.
All the ones I know of have
AMCO
5.
reuse. AMCO
They have a
reuse.
lot of people in the room, but they're not all on the board.
AMCO reuse is 7.
But
Or
that's
no,
a joint,
9.
that's joint powers board.
Chairman, sorry, Commissioner
No,
Mellon,
go
but
ahead.
I look at the statute and it says the board shall be comprised of not less than 5 nor more than 9. So maybe we just leave it at per the statute.
That's what I would suggest. Then the boards that have more than 5 explain the fact that they have all this work to do and they need more members. One of them wants to have 12 members because some people work and can't always make the meetings, and so they can shuffle people around. But I think it does take the coherence out of a board if one meeting there's 5 people and another meeting there's a different 5 people.
Yes, it does.
But I think leaving it in accordance with the statute is probably the best move right now anyway, until they feel their way through this deal.
I'd agree with that.
If I can speak on that real quick, I like the 5, not more than 9, but is there any way to put some verbiage in there to keep it odd? So that, you don't have a tie on certain decisions? So it's either 5, 7, or 9, not 6 or 8, where those potential ties on contractual decisions and different things like that could be.
Shall be an odd number of not fewer than 5, no more than 9.
That's just my suggestion on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, on that same paragraph, and I just noticed this because I have the statute in front of me. This really doesn't say what the term length is. That's a trick question, because you see it says initial terms are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't say, it says they could be appointed for successive terms. The statute says, which is a lot cleaner, trustees shall serve 5-year terms which shall be staggered. I think by definition that means 1, 2, 3, or 4 initially. So I think that sentence from the statute can replace first part of that sentence. Although if somebody wanted to keep initial terms shall be 1, 2, 3, or 5 years, that's fine with me. But I'm just reading from the statute.
I see the statute.
It's second, either the top paragraph or the second from the top.
Wording is a little ambiguous. Trustees shall serve 5-year terms. It says which shall be staggered, so
So So Commissioner Laird, maybe to clean it all up, we leave our sentence alone. Initial term shall be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, period. Then we put thereafter, and then to read the statute, would you? Because I don't have it right.
Trustees shall serve 5-year terms, which shall be staggered.
Period.
The Board of County Commissioners shall annually appoint a successor to the trustee whose term expires.
And then,
Term of such-
terms, and then period. Then terms shall commence on the first Monday in January following the date of his or her appointment.
which something that Keith wrote about having an election for a new board chairman, but I think the way that statute says it, you do it when somebody's term expires and they're replaced.
So are we good with that language? Everybody clear on that?
I would, are you just recommending then, and Mr. Nicolason, that we just stick with what the statute says?
No, I'm recommending we say, we keep our sentence initial terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, period. Thereafter, then use the statutory sentence, trustees shall serve 5 years terms and shall be staggered, period. Terms shall commence on the first Monday and blah, blah, blah.
I don't have a problem with that.
Said it ought to be August instead of January. Because that's when we started.
I read that a little differently myself, but it doesn't hurt if you just follow the statute and put in there what the statute says, then we don't have any issue with somebody raising something that says this does not comply with the statute. But no, we don't have it with respect to 5-year terms. That was an interpretation by a former commissioner to stagger them. Then one person gets a 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it says that it uses the word shall serve 5-year terms. Right.
Right.
So it is a little weird. I would just quote the statute and go from there, and then if there's an issue, we deal with it. But I think we're changing the other one that I wanted to address with Peter's issue. 2.1.4 says trustees shall be competent. Is that what the statute requires, that word? And do they define it? Yeah. Well, does competent just mean they can read and write? Yeah.
Depends on the interviewee.
Chairman, you have my handwritten comment on the change to 2.1.4, residing in the incorporated and unincorporated areas of Trumbull County. Because previously, and Commissioner Coates brought this to my attention, thank you. It kind of indicated that they all had to be in the unincorporated areas or from the unincorporated areas, which was not my intent. So that's what that handwritten change attempts to clarify.
The other thing we can do is just say residents of the county. I would prefer to do that. Just say residents of the county. That way you're leaving out unincorporated and incorporated.
The only reason I say that is then, to me, that's a clear intention that we have representatives from both. So that at no time are they all outside the incorporated areas or inside of it. So that's why I thought it was useful to have both words there.
I think that's an important piece to keep in, just for the sake of, I guess, avoiding the argument down the road.
That would be my thought.
There's a lot of people within the incorporated areas that utilize the parks, and there's a lot of people outside those areas. And I understand this, the point towards simplicity, but I think the explicit identification gives credit to those people where they live within the county, and that they're each welcome to be part of this board.
What does the statute say with respect to that?
It doesn't specify.
So it doesn't require in and out of county people. I think we stick with the statute. Period.
I think on some of these other boards, I know on some of these other boards that it is delineated that there be both. In some cases, it says it has to be this many from inside and this many from outside. So I think the precedent is there for us to continue that.
Yep.
Which I
The
think is
only-
important.
The only board we currently have that does that is the planning and zoning. That's it. None of the rest of them do. All the rest of them are just citizens of the county. And that
This
would
is a
specifically,
statutory board, so
yeah.
I want to
but-
follow the statute.
But I'm just saying the rest of them don't say that. We can pick and choose from where they are.
Could we just do like a straw poll, thumbs up or down, and move on?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, we're just having a discussion right now, so.
Oh, I thought we were getting hung up on just saying county
Well,
or
well,
unincorporated,
Well,
incorporated.
we were discussing it, so.
Sorry.
So, since everybody's looking at me, it doesn't, I'm not really hung up on it, as long as we're not saying X amount from incorporated, X amount from unincorporated. If we say incorporated, unincorporated residents of the area, cool. If we say residents of the area, I don't care. Just as long as we aren't, I don't mind the delineation so that everybody knows that both parties should be represented. It's not something I'm going to, not a hill I'm going to fight.
No, I think the theory is that statutory theory is that the people have to live in Natrona County, period, the end.
Well, right, residing in Natrona County.
Give an address.
And, yeah,
So either way, I don't care. Arm wrestle. I'm good with incorporated and unincorporated. Let's just keep going.
all right, so it's incorporated and unincorporated.
Mr. Chairman,
Numbers, go ahead.
at this point, we're going over Peter's,
Yes,
adjustments. Did you want me to bring in my questions at this point, or while we're,
if you've got questions that are associated with it, yeah. then
or
that's
did we
fine.
want to finish Peter's up and
No,
then go
no,
back?
let's do them all in one shot. So it's taking us longer than I anticipated that it was going to tonight, so let's,
Okay, so keeping in mind what that email that Keith sent us, but what I've looked at and experienced on other boards, I do believe that a commissioner should be represented, the board should be represented, or county commissioner should be represented on the trustee board. I do believe as well that, that commissioner or para-commissioners, should have voting rights, not just a liaison member, but a full member of that board. And so that's why in this section, I added that little verbiage right there is just I think that, the board should be represented with a voting member.
So now what you're saying is you wanna change the statute and not have it comprise
Statute doesn't,
citizens, you wanna put commissioners on.
We're all commissioners or citizens of the county.
and the statute doesn't say that the commissioner can't be on there as a voting member.
Does it say that it just can't be all comprised of commissioners then?
No, it shouldn't say that.
At least one. As a, yeah, as a voting member, not a liaison who just sits there and watches.
Yeah, so take out my sentence.
Okay?
This is 2.14, Heather.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying that for Heather's sake.
Oh.
So she knew where we were at. So,
No, Michael.
So county commissioner having a voting, what's their term gonna be? Is it gonna be half of their elected cycle? Will it be a 4-year term? Cause everybody else is a 5-year term.
That is a good question, actually.
So, I mean, I just wanted to point that out and maybe decide if, liaisons are 1 year and they're reelected, or do you want to do it for a full 4 years?
Thank you.
So-
That's a good catch. Prefer you sitting down, though.
all right, so. All right, anything else on 2.14?
The issue is deviating from the statute that disturbs me.
Well,
It's unusual to deviate from a statute.
if that's the case, where the person is appointed for a 5-year term, that would be a commissioner being appointed for over 1 year over his term as commissioner. Would we want to do that, or just leave it as a commissioner as a liaison, a voice to that board at that point?
I think the liaison is just fine.
That way we stay within the statutory.
Yep.
Yeah. Damn it. Yep.
All right,
We,
Need to do that more often, don't you?
and in 2.15, I think that we need to remove the vice chair and just give all the way through here, is remove the vice chair and just say that if the chair is not present, then the secretary resumes that position, and the treasurer, if the secretary is not there, and if
Where
you
are we?
don't, on 2.15.
oh, because that's what the statute says, isn't it?
No, it doesn't. There is no vice chair in the statute.
No, it says the secretary will assume.
Yes, all it says is the chair, the secretary, and the treasurer, and all I'm saying is that we don't necessarily need a vice chair in there, because the secretary can take that position. And if the secretary and the chair aren't there, then the treasurer can take that position. And if you don't have those, you're not gonna have a quorum for the most part, so it won't make a whole lot of difference.
Here, once again, I think we should do it the way it's laid out by statute. That would cause us the least problems if somebody decides they want to object to something.
The reason I added it in there is the same reason we have a vice chair on the board of county commissioners. It's another step just in case you're off hunting moose or whatever.
I won't be doing that again.
Anyways,
So once a lifetime, I'm done.
and so but that person, if, while keeping, the secretary and the treasurer's positions intact while the chairman's out, it's just another layer, another chain in the chain of command, as it were, for handling the meetings. And any invoices or direction that may need to happen, do business while the chairman's out.
Well, my point is the secretary should be able to step up and do that.
Statute says. I don't know where we get the idea that we can modify the statute.
Well, the vice chair isn't provided under Wyoming statute for county commissioners either, which you pointed out 2 years ago. So, I mean, we're not deviating in a material way. I think it'd be useful to have that kind of chain of command.
I think it's useful, but again, it's not a hill I'd die on, but I think it's a useful tool in the toolbox for the board to continue business continuity.
Casey, what are your,
I'm not hung up one way or the other on this one.
standstill right now? All right,
Straw poll, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor of following the statute.
it's not in the statute, so,
That's what I'm
So-
in favor of
so-
doing,
so you're-
following the statute.
okay, so you're against. I'm against, I'd just soon take it out. Take out the vice chair.
Make a decision, let's get going.
Okay, let's just take it out at once.
Okay, all right, so we'll remove anything that reference to a vice chair. And along with that, Heather, we'll put the sequence in there that if the chair is not present, then the secretary will assume that position and the treasurer will assume that position if the secretary and the chairman are absent.
It'll happen about once every 10 years.
Well, I know, but you gotta have it covered.
I know.
You gotta have it covered so that everybody knows. Okay.
It's already in there, I believe. Yeah. Yep. Right.
Yeah. That's why I said the whole, just across the board, it makes it easier. So, all right. So,
That, Miss County Attorney, all references to vice chair are removed.
2.16. Peter has to strike out member of the board and say trustee shall serve without compensation. And treasurer shall give bond in the amount securities.
Yeah, Mr. Treasurer,
Mr. Treasurer, no, I'm not the treasurer.
Mr.
No,
yeah,
that would
I
be,
know.
that would be Casey.
that used to be me. Just understand that a lot of these are just nitpicks where I'm trying to clean it up because it says maybe 3 different ways, member of the board or trustee or board trustee. So this is just an effort when you see things like member of the board cut out. It's not changing, it's just to clarify and make it consistent throughout. So that's what a lot of these little changes are.
I don't have any problem with that at all. Does anybody else have any problem with those cleanups? Okay, all right. That was easy. Okay, down in 2.17, and I know this is what the statute says, but I would prefer to leave, if a county is without title to a sufficient land, it may, I would rather leave that in
You're
there.
looking at
2.17?
1.7?
Yeah. 2.1.7.
Oh, 2.17.
Yeah. I would rather leave the original language in there. And if we don't leave that in there, then I would like to remove the condemnation under the right of eminent domain.
So the language that you changed a little bit there, Peter, was, that's the statute language?
Yeah, the without title to sufficient land, I think calls into my mind as a real estate attorney about 4 different issues that then can be litigated. And so that's why I thought that what is an archaic provision, we're still not making any modifications to the statute, by just saying if approved, because what is sufficient, and insufficient, what is title? Is that fee simple absolute title, or is that something, more approximate to a leasehold title? So anyway, sorry, I'm a lawyer, and that's what lawyers have done for the last 120 years to our, to real property laws. So that's why I think it should be just cleaned up by saying county may, if approved by the board, acquire such lands as are deemed necessary. And the right of eminent domain, is set forth, so is condemnation, set forth under the statute. So that's not a reach.
I have a problem with it.
No problem. It's not a sticking point to me.
All right. All right, I don't have any problem with the changes in 2.2, duties and responsibilities.
So, in my version, I had a one in between there that, is a blurb from another board. On my version, it was, the 2.107. And it just kind of, like I said before, this is a grassroots community, board, and it felt right to have a statement like that this is for, this board's, for the people, for the community. My version, the pink one. Here. So this is what, the one I was talking about. Peter took it out, and it's not a hill or it's not anything. I was just curious if, kind of why, because like I said, it just kind of gives it a good grassroots feeling to it.
I don't have any problem. I wouldn't mind putting that in.
Is it statutory?
That's from another board.
Well, the one you guys want to change on this, if a county is without title of sufficient land, that's a particular statement by the statute.
We already went through that one.
I know, but I'm trying to understand why we wouldn't just use that statute. I didn't make a comment on it, but when I read it, sufficient land means we don't have enough land, so we gotta buy some land. So the way, when you take that out, it means if we wanna buy land, we can buy land.
Yep. That,
But the statute doesn't give us that authority. So, I'm just gonna make a blanket statement. I'm against changing what the statute says on anything that may be presented, and I'll just leave it at that to save time.
Jim, on your paragraph, I think we don't need the words of Natrona County, just this Parks Board. Actually, you could just say this board because we defined it. So this board is a subdivision. It follows and can best attain its objectives. But help me understand the last 7 words or so, 8 words, although not tied necessarily by their rules, policies on views or policies.
policies on views. So,
Or, oh, is it, okay, wait. So is the word on a typo? Should it be or? So although
probably
not,
is.
although not, I think then it would maybe make sense, although not tied, comma, necessarily by their rules, policies, or views.
Yeah,
That what it is?
that would probably be what I meant.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
And like I said, it's not, it's fluff. It really is fluff. It doesn't mean per se a whole lot other than that it's, you know, this thing's for the people, for the community, grassroots type thing.
If it's just fluff, let's just leave it out.
All right, I don't care.
I'm fine leaving it in. I like the visualization that says the people's. I'm with Jim on that one.
Okay,
I'll stay, keep it in.
or where are we gonna put it?
Right at the tail end, right there, right before, duties and responsibilities of board.
Heather, did you get that? So after 2.17, we will insert 2.10.7 from Jim's version.
2.1, yeah, so, or, but this would be 2.18.
Yep.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. to
With
county
Peter's,
attorney.
Okay.
smithing.
Madam County Attorney, I need to understand what your view is of changing these statutes, some which are changes the intent of the statute. Do we have authority to change statutes?
So, trustee
Not
Laird,
legislators.
I don't think that, the modification to 2.1.7 really changes the statute. I think it changes the wording of it. We're still bound by whatever the statute says, so I don't see a conflict with that particular one. I think, trustee Nicolaisen was just trying to clarify the language a bit.
You what?
I think that the language was just trying to be clarified by trustee
So
Nicolaisen.
here's my point. Do we have the authority statutorily to change a state statute? That's my comment, that's my question.
Well,
We're
no,
not
we don't have that authority, but I don't think that's
not
what we're
Trying
doing.
to change the statute. I think if we do something that's in conflict with the statute, that's a problem. We can't do that. But if it's silent, we can build from it as long as there's consistency, so.
All right, so we're on 2.2.1. I don't have any problem with that one. Does anybody else? 2.2.2. We're okay. I would like to remove and terminate in 2.2.3. Because that's covered later on, that's hiring staff and everything else. Talks about staff further on down, as far as them being in charge of the staff. It's covered. Well, I'm gonna have to find it. But it was covered in a different place as far as what they can and can't do. But if they're talking about staff in general, which is what it does, that covers all staff. And and that's what it does. It covers all staff in a different location, so all staff is covered.
Okay.
And that's,
Yeah.
So does the statute, is that in the statute that we give the board authority to fire a parks director, hire and fire a parks director?
I mean, that's pretty
Where is
much,
it in the statute?
I haven't seen that in the statute.
pretty much how it is though in
It-
operation.
it may
It
be
usually
what-
isn't the, any other board, if it's a statutory board or whatnot, they
It's in the
select their
statute,
executive director or whatever director. So if you take a look, Dave. I think Peter's talking about right here. This one's saying the Parks Director has the ability to employ, terminate, direct within here. That's just the staff below him. Where this is,
Yeah.
where this is talking about the Parks Director himself. Does that make sense?
So it
So
says
this
by
is-
this, the board employs terminate, direct, and
Adopted.
supervise.
Right, policies adopted by the board. Parks Director, look at the commas. And semicolon.
Well, I knew it said something in there later on. I just.
Right,
remembered
this is,
exactly
this
where.
is giving the Parks Director the authority to hire, fire, do whatever. This is giving the board the authority to hire, fire the director. Does that make sense? That's how I see it.
Been a lot easier just to follow the statutes and we'd be home eating dinner.
Oh, you and dinner, you don't need dinner.
I haven't eaten since yesterday at 10.
Don't give me that.
Put it up to. Who wants to leave it in there?
The hire, hire,
Point
fire,
three.
Parks Director. 223. Leave it in.
Did you get that, Heather? I don't have any problem with 2.2.4. Does anybody have anything else to add until we get down to 2.3? Well, that's removed. So we don't have to worry about that. 2.3.2 is removed already.
I just have one quick question on 2.2. Well, I guess, where it talks about approval of monthly expenditures. I'm a little new to the statutory board stuff. Is that typical that the county clerk, the Parks Director will still submit bills for payment?
We
to-
can do it that way because what that does is it simplifies the process and we've already got it in place.
Did this for you, Tracy.
She woke up.
It's on, trustee Nicolason's comments. Okay.
Yes, that's basically all it amounts to. Since the process is already there, it's a lot easier. So, you're welcome. All right,
Where are we at?
well, I'm kind of, have you guys got any issues with any of this other stuff? Well, I know you don't, you wrote it. I was looking at Casey, so. No, I'm just asking if anybody else has any issue with any of this stuff, so if I don't have anything until 2.3.5 where we need to change it to August 1st instead of January 1st.
Mr. Chairman. Okay. Where are we at?
3.5. August 1st instead of January 1st.
Point
because
three
that's-
point five.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter's thing.
because-
Sorry.
Because that's when we started, and that's when we had the elections. So that's our anniversary.
Right. My thoughts on it are we keep going the path. But as people rotate out, traditionally a lot of boards are held on for officer selection is the first meeting after January 1st. I mean, we could have started in November and would we wait till November to select officers at that point? The first meeting of the first year or of the year just kind of makes it clean feeling.
One of the reasons why I like August 1st is because the budget will be done in July. And you go into August 1st and it takes you right into the next year. That takes you right into your next fiscal year.
Well, you could do this. You could say that the officer shall be elected annually at the first regular meeting of the board held after January 1st of each year beginning 2026.
We could do that.
I think that would be the reasonable way of doing it.
Okay. Beginning.
Well, we've already had the election forward. I don't want to discuss it anymore.
So we'll just leave it
I
at
don't mind
beginning in
doing it in
2026. Heather?
Yeah.
So,
It
okay.
just makes it cleaner.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so,
Beginning
Got that.
January 2026.
okay. Anybody have anything on 2.4?
Yes.
What?
So me and Peter removed a word and
Which one?
talked about a little bit, just cause. Peter as a lawyer doesn't like just cause. And me as a layman likes just cause rather than just a cause.
I like just cause.
I don't like I like just cause. I don't like just a cause.
No,
'Cause I don't know what that a cause may be.
two point four.
Point 4.1.
Yep.
Yep.
I don't have just cause.
I do, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Milne. So, basically, the statute 189201 provides that, the trustees may remove, the governing body which of the trustees may remove a member of the Board of Trustees for cause without a public hearing. The cause actually is a kind of a legal term of art. It doesn't mean for any cause. It has to be misconduct, neglect of duty, that type of thing. So there's really I think there's a property interest in appointing somebody to a board as a trustee like
And
this.
that's how Peter explained it to me, and I was good with it. But I just wanted it, yeah. I wanted the county attorney's legal opinion on it, basically, so that there wouldn't be any confusion moving forward for the record.
Right. So we can't just do it because
I mean,
we
just 'cause
decide
I
we
got-
don't like
I don't know.
so-and-so because
But
they,
WPI, I can't be pulled out of, right?
but I'm sorry, what's that?
Just because my eye is leaking or
Yes,
something.
yes, no. That would not be just a cause that we
Right.
would remove you for.
That would
so.
be a cause, but not a just cause.
Oh, it could.
Okay, I'm
Anyway,
good. Let's
all
keep
right,
going.
All right, anything else on 2.4? All right, 2.5. Two point six.
Mr. Chairman, I did have a question for the board or the Board of Trustees on this part. When I was adding a lot of this different parts and pieces. One board that I came across that I was looking at had specific, considerations and addressed specifically, electronic attendance and the like. I didn't think we needed it, but I thought I'd just mention it. Is there any interest there, or we're just good to go to keep it going, or
What do you mean by electronic attendance?
like,
Zoom?
a conference call in for for a member to call in, or through
Like you do all the
Teams,
time.
or exactly, or through Teams, or whatever, it be. They had some consideration that was cool. Where I didn't know if that was something that we even need to bother to address, but I wanted to bring it up just so that you guys could consider it one way or the other.
I think in today's world, that's where we're going. Heaven forbid, I've testified on, I don't know how many times this year, done legislator by Zoom. So I personally don't have any qualms with that, as long as we have the setup in the establishment to do it. If we don't, I don't necessarily like just the calling in, but if it's actually a Zoom call or something like that where the public can still participate, things like that, and see what's going on.
This is for like us missing a meeting.
Right. No, I know, but what I'm saying is, as long as we have something set up where the public can actually see that and see and hear what's going on, I don't have any problem with that. If they can't, then I do.
Do the legislators do they have to be in the session? They have to be there to vote. They can't do it
Right.
electronically.
You have to be there to vote.
Mr. Chairman,
It's an issue.
Mr. Chairman, under 3.4 quorum, majority of the trustees shall constitute a quorum. Typically, I think that would actually read a majority of the trustees present in person or electronically shall constitute a quorum. Whether we add electronically or some telephonically, whatever, but it's missing something anyway, in my humble opinion. So again, 3.4 ought to read, that a majority of the trustees present. And then whether you want to put in person or electronically shall constitute a quorum.
Where's that at? Oh,
Next
3.4.
And maybe that's where it needed to be, but as just trying to, yeah. I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole, but I mean, we want to put together the best product we can, so product forward.
Okay. All right, and in my personal feeling, I think 3.5 doesn't have any place in the bylaws. I think those are rules and orders that need to be established.
Which one did you say?
3.5, public comments and all that stuff. I think that's stuff that needs to be specifically isolated and developed at a later date and not in the bylaws themselves.
Those are rules.
Those are rules, those are not bylaws.
All the ones in blue?
Yep.
Yeah, those are all rules. I don't think those are bylaws. They should all be stricken and placed in rules. I mentioned that to you.
Oh, I'm just looking, I thought maybe you had something to say.
Go ahead.
No.
No, it's not something like that I think setting out, making it part of the bylaws, is valid, as it does set up public expectations of what they can see at the meeting and what they can expect. Being within the bylaws themselves, they wouldn't necessarily be amended as rapidly as possibly part of just meeting rules, and I think they kind of fit myself personally, but it's not a hill.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate Commissioner Trustee Big Guy Milne over there. I'll
Going by his
say,
first name, it's easier.
yeah,
Hey,
I
you.
know,
A
thank
whole
you.
lot easier. We're
Yeah,
pretty
it's good.
informal
Our-
right
our
now at this
audience,
point in time.
Isn't gonna be offended. So I appreciate Jim, wanting to give guidance to the board, especially new board members coming on, hopefully sooner rather than later. My feeling is also, I think, similar to what you guys said, which is these are more like rules of practice, not bylaws as much. And so what I think we could do is for 3.4 public comments, just have it be the trustees may adopt rules for public comment, period. And then we take out all this stuff and give it to them at some later point and
Well,
say,
that's-
think about that.
Yeah, these are recommendations, but you can set whatever you want to. That's where I was going with that too. Is that we just don't need them in the bylaws. We need them in the rule. I mean, if they want to set their rules, they set the rules. So,
No, I'm good with that. I'm good with that. It just, a lot of this is, yeah.
okay, Heather, so basically what we'll do is, public comment, or rules will be established by the board. Well, they need to set some type of rule. Yeah, we don't have to dictate what they are, but shall establish rules of conduct pertaining to public meetings. I mean, that's very vague, but it doesn't really tie their hands real hard. They can, yeah, so, okay. All right. Article 4. Anything?
Dallas is getting hungry.
No. I'm gonna say that some of your rules are violative of the person's right of freedom of speech, however.
One simple clarification here. I think everything's fine. It states that the department director will prepare the annual budget. However, in the duties and responsibilities of the board, section 2.2, I think it's 2.210.
You're going backwards on this, man.
Well, it says the board will prepare in consultation with the Parks Director an annual Parks Department budget. So who is responsible for preparing that budget? Who's ultimately responsible for that? Parks Director or the Parks Board?
Yes.
So ultimately, it's the Parks Board that's responsible for preparing that budget with my assistance.
Yeah.
Okay. Or with the Parks Director's assistance. Let me rephrase that. Okay, that's really all I had there. The rest of it seems to fall in line with current duties. So, thanks.
Okay. All right. Now we're back to Article 4.
So, Peter removed a little bit of mine. As far as the initial, I had it broken down to 2. The second part, I understand. The first, with previous discussion. The first part, though, I do think that in here somewhere, and it is kind of spoken to a little bit back here where we're discussing the board hiring the parks director, but I think it needs to be clearly stated that the director is, responsible to the parks board. Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of helps delineate, responsibility, who reports to whom and roles and responsibilities a little bit, I think, personally. Mhm. No, that makes sense. Um, More or less, it's just to, not so much, isolate's the wrong word, but isolate the parks director to the parks board, so that he's not, getting cross instruction from Board of County Commissioners or from this department head or that department head or wherever. But he's responsible to the board, and then the board can direct his activities or whatever. It's just to set that course, basically. That's how kind of what I envision the intent for. But if it's not needed, that's fine. It's, again, something that's not really. Yeah, I mean, it's a little weaker than what I intend, but yeah.
Trustee Milne, I think this may also be covered, in the job descriptions. Our job descriptions dictate who the director supervisor is. So currently it says Supervisors Board of County Commissioners. So I believe, you could probably cover that just under the job description as to who the Parks Director directly reports to in that manner, that it would be the Board of Trustees. That might be one way of doing it, and not necessarily have to specify in here.
Madam County Attorney, what's your thoughts?
I just want to clarify that I understand what you're saying. You wanted, we're looking at 4.10.1 in your draft, Mr. Milne?
Yeah, kind
Trustee
of.
Milne? Okay.
You know, that sort of language there where the Parks Department Director is hired by the board and is responsible to the board. Not to Road and Bridge, not to legal, not to VOCC, not to whatever. The Parks Board is his direct, chain of command.
Do you want to say is hired by the Parks Board and supervised by the Parks Board?
Well, it already says that he's hired by the Parks Board otherwhere. I'm just talking about like direction and this may be a nothing burger. It's just kind of.
Or maybe a statement that says that the Parks Board shall, or the director, excuse me, shall,
I'm good. If nobody, if everybody thinks it's a nothing burger, I'm good with that. You're just, I'm just saying burger and you're like starting to drool.
Let's just leave it like it is.
okay.
Okay, we'll just leave it like it is. All right. Article 5. Anybody have any requests to change this to Article 5?
I'm good.
Okay, Article 5 will be, remain the same. Article 6, any
Good.
changes? Okay. 7, 8,
Eight, I think that, I don't know if any of you, don't laugh at me here, but there's a more soft version of Robert's Rules of Order to be used generally by lay people. It's called Martha's Rules of Order. And it's really, if you take a look at it, gentlemen, you'll probably think that it's pretty reasonable. But most people cannot follow Robert's Rules of Order strictly. I'll give you an example. Last night when we were taking straw votes, that's totally outside the scope of Robert Rule of Order. We adopt Robert Rules of Order, we can't do that anymore, among other things we've been doing. Because even, they're just a difficult, unless you have a paid parliamentarian who can rule on things for the chairman and tell him how to rule on it. And we want that, it's just an expensive matter. I would like to see some rules implemented for this commission. Not necessarily advocating Robert's rules because I think that we would have difficulty with those without a parliamentarian. And I would recommend you guys take a look at Martha's rules, because I'd seen it, and when I saw Martha's rules, I thought, and I didn't give it any credence, and then I'm being told by people who are using it that it's really good, the meetings go nice and smooth, doesn't require a parliamentarian or argumentation generally. So it's just a thought, but I don't think that ought to be here. I don't think we ought to nail them with Robert's Rules of Order because that's a real job. So I'd say take it out at this point in time. We can always amend that. If you guys look at Martha's rules and think that they're pretty good, you might even want to adopt them for the commission.
I'm in favor of striking 8 then. Okay, so, yeah. All right, 9,
Good with it.
Okay. You're done.
Chairman. Oh, that's
We already
fine.
got through
I'm
9, we're done, man.
I'm asking about yours. So I just wanted to confirm, that with your suggestion, we discussed your points, correct?
I looked through here and,
So we either incorporated or,
most of my comments we've already incorporated one way
okay,
or another.
and then
so,
the number 3 on the quorum, that kind of went away with the,
yeah, that's one thing that
the
yeah.
4, or the 5,
Yeah.
9
yeah,
thing.
if there's 3, yeah, just a majority.
Okay,
So that was, I mean, I didn't have that many and we incorporated those, so
I know,
that's
onward and up.
that's taken care of. So, anything else on the bylaws? All right.
We have to see the finished product before we make a motion to adopt them.
We will
Mr.
have,
Chairman. Peter's giving us that look.
we can, well, Heather's gonna send out something, but I think that we've already agreed that we can agree on those independently on the changes that you were gonna,
I think we need to have a clean copy we all look at and have a meeting and have a vote, unless you want to do it like the zoning was done a couple years ago.
well, we could do that. We could just have we could actually call a short meeting, just for the purpose of adoption
I think we should
of
do that.
these, once we have a clean copy and look at them.
Mr. Chairman, so, and remember, I ducked out
Yeah.
at the end, or after some time, so maybe I missed this, but what's the big picture? We're gonna have a meeting, public meeting in April.
We are, the notice for the adoption of the rules, I think, yeah, a meeting in April. I can't remember the exact date.
And,
but
and is that set in stone, or have we published that?
It's been published.
Okay, so we need to stick with that, and we need to have enough public notice. Um, and so,
The rule, or the rules have already been sent out for
okay,
comment, for public comment.
so what is our time frame? Whether we need a special meeting, or what? I mean, I guess we can't wait till March.
To adopt these, the bylaws?
We have to have the bylaws adopted before we can adopt.
That could be the point of a special meeting.
Yeah,
then
we
in
have to
the-
have the bylaws adopted before we can adopt the rules.
But we're
But
not
we
gonna adopt the rules till April.
Right, so we can adopt these in March.
I don't know.
No, you can have a special meeting that's
Or- or-
that qualifies as a imperative meeting, shall we say. That's not the word for it. But an emergency meeting that qualifies under the statute. And I think that adopting the bylaws would probably be a pretty good.
And the other thing too is that if
Did you
we,
hear me on that?
yes, I did.
So you could run a notice and have it all done within a week.
Yeah, the other option that we have, is that if we don't have any other agenda items in March, then we can adopt the bylaws and then have our next meeting. And
Well, Mr.
have-
Chairman, I
have-
guess that
Adopt these.
if I missed this, I'm sorry. It goes back to Article 3, meetings of the Parks Board. Did the board determine regular meetings, like a regular meeting schedule, that you were going to be once
And
a month?
April is March. No, we determined, we set every 3 months when we did that.
Okay.
Right now, we have not set, we're doing these on a monthly basis right now because we needed to get these done.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Go ahead.
I think March, personally, I think March would be a fantastic time to have a meeting that isn't just bylaws, but actually has Mr. Brown getting us up to speed on what the season's looking like and what the big projects, little projects, what's behind, what the priorities are, because, you know, I don't think that I mean, we're in touch with one another individually, but I think it'd be great for him to, and to be in front of the public too at a meeting in March. So I'd sure like to see a March meeting.
So our regular Tuesday meetings in March would be,
The 4th.
Yeah.
The 18th.
18th. 4th and the 18th. Yeah. March is gonna be the same.
so this is,
You would?
How's the 5th with everybody just like we did this one?
We can schedule it far enough.
of course, I'm gonna be out of town. March 13th, I'm gonna leave the 12th, and I'll be back the 5th of March.
Yep.
I can do it on the 5th of March.
All right. Right, plan on doing it on the 5th of March.
But for the regular meetings, on the 19th, or on the 7th, let's see, it's the 18th, I'll probably be gone on the 18th. Maybe.
So the consideration that I've got is the biggest consideration I have for us getting this put together is for these parks. Not, we do the bylaws so that we can do the parks rules, so that we can get the parks rules to Michael, get them to the sheriff's office so they can start enforcing things. That's my big concern is season moves forward. We need to get this stuff rolling, so. No, that works. We need to have some urgency here to keep this stuff going. I'm always urgent.
right. We'll vote on the bylaws. We'll confirm the bylaws on the 5th of March. And we'll go from there. And that way we have plenty of time. But Michael?
So I'd like some clarification as director. I'm scheduled to have a Parks Advisory Board meeting next Thursday. However, I now have a Parks Board of Trustees in front of me. So I do not know if this board will address the dissolution of that advisory board, or if that continues. It'd be confusing to the public to have two meetings where I provide updates to what's going on in the parks. So I just need clarification if I'm to have a February meeting for an advisory board and then a March meeting for Board of Trustees, and then a week later have another advisory board meeting, or how that's going to progress and how we should move forward here.
Right now, I'd recommend leaving the advisory board until this board is set up completely and everything's in place. And then we can adjust at that point in time, because right now, there are a lot of people that are used to tuning into those meetings and looking at them, and they're finding out what's going on at that point in time. But that would be my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, Michael, thanks for bringing that up. You know, our bylaws don't say anything about an advisory board. So we're kind of in this weird area. I wasn't thinking that the advisory board was going to continue forward, period. I know that I knew they were kind of in a holding pattern, but they don't have authority. They shouldn't be making decisions. I think that this Board of Trustees under our current Wyoming statutes, and the bylaws that we've kind of finalized, I think that report is to this Board of Trustees on March 5th. And I'm not aware of really why the advisory board is engaged later this month.
Well, it's a standing meeting on the second Thursday of every month at 5:30. And so, the county commissioners, appointed people to that board, so that board's still active. My other concern is if we have public comment for the parks rules, and I'm still having an advisory meeting, do I need to make sure those comments are submitted to the commissioner's office for those rules? Or how does that need to be addressed when somebody does public comment?
My feeling is that we're the decision makers and the buck is stopping here with respect to the rules. So my preference would be we hear from those people directly, I know you would get us the information
Right.
reliably and accurately, but it's always better to hear from the horse's mouth. So
That's what I'm looking for, is direction on that. Do I hold a meeting next Thursday, or do I cancel that? And how do I proceed? So I'm looking at this board to direct me on that matter.
Right now, I would go ahead and have it, and the main reason is because if people are asking questions, you can at least direct them. If they come there for the, asking questions on the rules or anything like that, then that would be something you could ask, and you're still giving information out to the public. Those still are recorded meetings, with information that we aren't currently covering. So that's my personal feeling.
I can. Mr. Chairman. So my feeling is that the advisory board was created by the Board of County Commissioners and to be dissolved by the Board of County Commissioners. The members of that board need to be thoroughly thanked for their service, by that board. This board, however, once established with the bylaws, and, we're kind of in that point at this point anyways. But this board, if it so chooses to have a subcommittee, the bylaws do address that on establishing them, that we just looked at, and we could reconstitute that board of advisory if we so choose. But that board that is currently in operation is a Board of County Commissioners creation, and those people need to be thanked by the Board of County Commissioners for their service to this community. I think, I think that board meeting should be held initially. The agenda needs to be, potentially, if it hasn't been created yet, it needs to be heavily modified so that that board, the Board of County Commissioners needs to notify that board of its impending removal. And that board's next meeting needs to not address any potential issues that are out there. They need to let the public know what's going on with this Board of Trustees. And basically that would be the agenda. That's my thought. And then the board needs to be removed and by the commission. And this one, and like I said, if we want to reestablish it, cool, the subcommittee, we can do that. If we choose not to, then we don't do that. But at this point, that advisory board is, in my mind, very, very limited because this board is standing up on its feet at this point.
Okay, so if I understand the Board of Trustees right, and it's the county commissioner's decision to dissolve that board, I will submit a memo to the Board of County Commissioners asking these questions. I will keep that meeting in February, and I'll keep the pending meeting in March, waiting on the answer from the Board of County Commissioners. My agenda is fairly simple with them. Mostly they approve some minutes, we have public comment, and it's really a Parks Director's report on what's going on in the parks. We don't have any major projects that I'm requesting input on design or anything like that. So the only thing that I'll currently avoid is comment on parks rules, and I'll just direct folks to address that to this board or to Michelle via email. Am I correct in that assumption?
I think so.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to talk like you did last night. Real quick, Commissioner Trustee Laird was not aware of this bill or its language exactly, while it was in the Senate. This is actually the bill from the House side. I talked to Representative Line, the bill from the House side that she has introduced into general session. It has been assigned a number. It may have actually came onto the floor today. I'm not sure. On the backside is the current status. But I just wanted, you had said you didn't know what the language was. And so I just wanted to provide this to you so that you understood what we were talking about the other day.
Yeah, there is an amendment to this, and I don't see that in here.
This is straight off the legislative site, so it may not have,
It doesn't have.
it hadn't been
It doesn't have
updated
the
yet.
amendment that was introduced also.
What's the amendment?
That any board that was established prior to 5 years from the enactment of this bill are exempt from any actions of this bill. So basically it's a grandfather clause. Anything that's older than 5 years will not be affected.
Who added the amendment?
Jamie did the day that she introduced the bill.
So when I talked to Jamie the other day, she said she had introduced this bill as a mirror bill from the senator's side, and that it was just to expedite the bill's passage through the House and Senate. She stated that when I told her that the Board of County Commissioners had, as a body, voted to actually be against this bill, she stated that she had not known that. and that she was going to discuss the situation with Bill, but I talked to him just this afternoon, and he said he hasn't spoken with her yet. So, who knows? But this is what's been introduced down in the House.
Now, like I said, when she introduced this into the appropriations, there was an amendment placed on this bill that protects so that if there was any concern about the airport board, the fair board, or any other board that is established, they are exempt.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just looking at the legislature's website on this House Bill 288, and I'm not seeing any sort of amendment like that. Not seeing any amendments to it.
The current digest is
And
on the
the
back.
amendment was done when she read before the appropriations, so you're gonna have to go to the appropriations committee, and that's when it was introduced in there.
Well, when you look at the digest, and it does have how everybody votes on it, and it does have the status, and it does have all the amendments to it. So I'm not sure what you're looking at, or but I'm not seeing that. And so I guess in my mind, it would be only appropriate to make a motion in opposition that this Board of Trustees is in opposition to House Bill 288, since it, as we see right now, is a mirror of Senate File 47.
We only had this for discussion on the agenda. We did not have it for a vote.
But
We did not have it for a vote. We didn't approve that for a vote. We approved it for discussion.
I don't think it needs to say vote on the agenda. I don't think it typically does, any of our agendas. But I guess if, I don't want to get into this too much. I've made a motion, and either it's seconded or it's not, and then legal counsel can weigh in on the propriety of it as during discussion.
Well, I don't think you were recognized by the chair to begin with for the motion. The agenda wasn't amended.
The agenda was strictly for discussion, and that was all. It wasn't
I
for
have
a
a motion
vote.
to adjourn.
We have public comment first. So,
So, Mr. Chairman, I
hold
don't,
on a minute.
Public who wants to comment.
County Attorney,
So, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I think this is the same difficulty we have. We haven't adopted any meeting rules or parliamentary rules here. So I think that I don't know that there's anything that prevents a motion from being made on the topic that the agenda was amended to include, if there's a second.
it's sick that our agenda was approved as such. This is as for discussion only, because it was for discussion, and that's what was brought up. That was asked, that's exactly what was asked to be put on here. It was not asked to be a vote, it was asked for discussion. So,
So, Mr.
discussion
Chairman,
does
one
not,
thing is that apparently you think there's an amendment. It's not showing up where they're looking.
I know
would
there,
like
I,
to know if there is amendment.
I do know there is an amendment, and I don't know why you can't find it, but there is an amendment.
But that's, the point is that here again, it's asking for a vote on something that isn't well known to us all, whether there's an amendment or not, or proven. And, I just think it's, truthfully, Mr. Nicolason, I think it's ungentlemanly to do this.
Commissioner Laird, I think that
So if you can be a
It's-
gentleman, I'd
Hold
be
on.
happy.
We'll call order. We're gonna take turns, we're gonna be orderly, and we're gonna do this correctly. We're not gonna get back into this tit for tat. We're not gonna get back into this he said, she said, or personal attacks. My ruling is that we will not be taking a vote on this, and we will open it up for public comment at this point in time.
I appeal the chair's decision.
Well, you have that right.
When we vote on that by this commission.
call for public comment?
Yes, I did. And then
Point of order, there was a
Here
motion on
comes
the
the
floor.
lady that wants to make a public comment. Have her come on up.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, I appealed the chair's decision. It needs to be voted on by your authority, which is this board. So the vote on the decision is proper.
I have a problem
And
with
it's
the
either
vote on this.
sustained or
I-
it's not.
Mr. Nicolais, I have a problem with this because this doesn't even have all the information. There is an amendment. I know that there's an amendment and I've read the amendment. And I'm sorry that you have not been able to find it, but the amendment is there. Therefore, we do not have adequate information to make a vote on yea or nay. Right now, it's my word saying that there is an amendment, your word saying that you can't find it. So because of that, I don't feel that we have the information. The information is not here, and it's not appropriate to take a vote on something when we do not have all the information, and every member of this board does not have an opportunity to read it.
Mr. Chairman, my motion, I think maybe there's a misunderstanding. My motion is that we oppose what we have here in front of us. And if it
That
has
is
been
not the whole
changed-
bill. That is not what has been amended. That is not the whole thing. That's where the problem comes in.
My
This-
motion was clear, my appeal was clear, and
My motion, and my denial of that was clear also. We do not have all the information, this right here.
as a point of order, you don't deny a motion to appeal.
I think you were out of order in making your motion to start with. That's where the problem comes in. You made a motion without it being proper. That makes that motion invalid. And that's not appropriate. That is not appropriate.
Mr. Chairman, it's not on the agenda.
The
I
only thing we
wasn't
had on
prepared
the,
for anything until Mr.
Yep.
Milne said that he wanted to make a comment on it. That was all it was a comment as to where it was. He handed me a document that I'm not even sure it's the entire discussion on that bill, because I haven't had a chance to look into it or inquire into it. And so I don't think that there's authority to change our agenda. I think that respectfully, I disagree with the county attorney. Custom has been that if the agenda's been accepted, we'd add that consideration. It was accepted at the beginning of the meeting. There wasn't any comments made about wanting to make any motions on anything. And I think that we ought to stick with that and continue on and let this person speak so she can go home.
I agree. With that, we're going to move into public comment. Come on up. Please state your name and your address.
So sorry. Thank you. Did you hear that?
Yep.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Gentlemen, ladies. Okay, so I sat here last month, and listened to the proposed rules. I did not stay through the bylaws because I was on 2 hours of work time and it was, a little bit much. But I'm here today to listen to more of the proposed rules. I did send you all an email. I hope you got it. And I did not mean any disrespect in that. I hope you didn't take it the wrong way by any means. I am very frustrated with how things are going with the proposed rules. I do feel that there's not enough education of what used to be compared to what's happening now. Me and Mr. Brown have had several conversations. And the one that I relate back to is, and I put it in my presentation to you guys, is the operational costs, operational fees. Mr. Brown states to me that the reason for the fee increase is because of operational costs. Have camped all my life here. I'm almost 45 years old, lived here all my life. Camping is not like it used to be at all. The fee increase to me is ridiculous. It's outrageous for what you're given. The campsites are not manned. The restrooms are not manned. This is not just at the lakes. This is up at Castor Mountain as well. People are fighting over campsites because of this reservation system that was put into place 4 years ago. And you know, Mr. Brown mentioned today that he only wants 10 people per campsite because of people, what was the wording used? I'm sorry. You were just saying that it keeps less riffraff out, basically. I don't agree with that because the fact that last year we were camping and a sheriff had to come to our campsite about an abandoned trailer with no tags, no license plates. It was just sitting right down by the water and it had a piece of wood on it. So we addressed that situation. The sheriff was telling me that there's nothing that they can do there, and then I call the Parks Department, there's nothing that they can do. They're bickering back and forth of whose job it is to do this stuff. In the meantime, the sheriff tells me that the weekend prior, there was a gun pulled on somebody just down the road from where we were at because of the campsite, because they were fighting over whose spot it was, who had the reservation. Parks Department was called, the police officers were called, or the sheriffs, and they couldn't figure out who the reservation belonged to. The reservation system is not being manned. People are leaving their campers, tents for days on end without any occupancy so that they can get something for the weekend or a holiday. During the week, if we want to go out on a Wednesday night, stay the night, you cannot find a spot because these people are hoarding spots for the weekend to come. This is a huge, huge problem. And if you're not going to manage the system, why put a system in place? Is my thoughts. Mr. Brown tells me he can't keep staff. Why is that? Why can't you keep staff? You know, is my question. If you don't have the staff and the manpower to do these things, then why do you have these rules set in place? The abandonment issue, I agree that there should be a phenomenal fee because of the sailboat that I saw that was by the water. Finally, the sheriff did call the gentleman because they actually knew who it belonged to. They called him. He came down and got it. There was no penalty for it at all. That Sunday, we were packing up to go. A huge storm came in. Water came rushing down that particular spot, which we've never camped there before, and will never again. It flooded our entire camp. I thought our trailer was going to go in the water, honestly. Had that sailboat trailer been sitting there unoccupied, it would have went straight into the water, and gosh only knows what would have happened. And that's littering. There's fines for littering, so why can't there be fines for leaving stuff unoccupied? Mr. Brown tells me there's no way to management. He doesn't have the staff to keep track of the system of no-shows. Because I said, well, okay, if you're gonna have a reservation system, then you should track the no-shows. You should track, you know, if there's like, you know, 3 times that the same people do it, they're 86th. They're gone for good, you know. People are now booking for the 4th of July because you could, well, I don't know about now, but you can book 90 days out. People are hoarding spots just to get them. They don't even know if they're going to do it. They don't even know if they're going to camp that week. They're just doing it because the reservation system makes them do that. It used to be first come, first serve. It was awesome. We didn't have issues. We didn't have people pulling guns. At least I don't think we did. The sheriff's actually said it's worse now than it was before. That's with the reservation system in place. Coupon books. There used to be coupon books. You want to raise the fees? Fine. Give us the option to have reduced camping fees. It was $10 a night, 10 days a week, or 10 days in a camping period, $100. So they gave us the option of $75 coupon books, $25 off. Right now, if you have it with the camping reservation system, the fees are going to be $15 plus. That is $150 for 10 days. Give us a discount if you want to raise the fees. I'm trying to make this short because I know I only have so much time. And I wanted to know how often these rules and regulations and fees are put into place. Mr. Brown said that it's been since, and I'm sorry, I don't have my paperwork, my phone died. But he said that they hadn't, I believe he said 2016 was when they were last, the fees were raised. I have an article from 2022 where they went from $10 to $12. It was in the Oil City News. I have the gentleman's name. It's in my presentation. It has not been that long. So is there a statute? Mr. Laird likes to go by statutes, and I appreciate that. I would like to know if there's a statute or limitation on these rules and regulations being raised, because it really does seem in the last 10 years, the fees have been raised at least 4 times. And I have articles that state that. I did not bring that information with me because I wasn't planning on speaking. I was just going to listen to what you guys had proposed. But I'm not the only one that feels this way. I actually had a lady, I have a a camping Facebook page of certain people that have come in that I brought in to say, hey, this is what's going on. I hear you guys complaining constantly, the public. Please attend these meetings. As you can see, nobody shows up. Now, this one I wasn't aware of because that was another thing I wanted to ask you is these meetings are not posted on the Natrona County Parks Department. Last month, I called and talked to a Parks Department lady, and she said that there wasn't a meeting. Thank gosh I spoke to Mr. Nicolason, who told me, yes, there is a meeting, and I came to that meeting. It doesn't seem like everybody's on the same page, and so and now I understand why you guys actually answered that question tonight, because not everything's in place. And so if we could be notified on the websites of when these meetings are, because I even went to I thought this was county commissioners, but it's actually trustees. And do you guys have a website for trustees okay. So, I don't know when these meetings are, other than when I reach out to Mr. Nicolason. And the reason why I reached out to Mr. Nicolason is because he's the only one that's responded to me on anything, and I appreciate that, thank you. I'm very concerned about the future of our generation now and the camping. Not just at the lakes, but also at, Castor Mountain. They tore Okie Beach apart. It used to be beautiful, and now it's not. I hear that they're going to do the same thing to Pathfinder. Everybody goes to Pathfinder now because you can have more than one camper in a spot. And that is how families and friends like to do it. It's not because we want to create havoc or litter or do anything that is illegal. We just want to camp and have fun and be ourselves. COVID was the best time. If you guys would have, I don't know if you went to the lake, but if you did, you would have saw people were enjoying themselves. And it's just not that way anymore. So that's what I would like to present, and I will see you next month. Or your next meeting, I guess. Which I wanted to clarify, is it March 5th you're doing the rules or just the bylaws?
Well, we'll do the bylaws.
Okay.
We'll have a clean copy of the rules.
Okay.
But
that's
we'll
what I-
actually vote on the rules in April. We'll approve them in April. And,
Okay, and that's when the public can come is April 2nd. Public can come anytime, but that's gonna be the big meeting is April 2nd.
they can come to the next one too, and because we'll have a clean copy that's posted.
Okay,
And you can look at those and you can talk to us about them at that time too.
perfect.
So,
Thank you, I really appreciate that.
okay.
So, ma'am, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This person that left a sailboat there, don't we have anybody out to the lake that checks on that kind of thing?
No, they don't. As a matter of fact, I called, like I said, I called the Parks Department. They said there's nothing we can do, call sheriff. Call the sheriff's office, they said call the Parks Department. I just did that. Nobody's working together. They blame each other all the time. I have had several complaints, saying, hey, I'm here. There's an unattended camper. Can you do anything about it? Nope.
Well,
gotta call the
if that's
Parks.
happening frequently, that needs to be stopped.
It is happening all the time. And in your new rules, it doesn't have anything about unattended campers. And I asked Mr. Brown last month about it, and he said that's because I don't have anybody to man it. We can't tell how long they've been staying, if they've been staying over their time. And I said, well, then why do you have a reservation system in place? He tells me that it's because he wants to cut down on cash flow in the boxes. But the boxes are still there. People are allowed to still have cash boxes. So why is this camping reservation system in place? I don't understand it. I just don't. So to answer your question, no. There's nobody going around consistently checking these things because they don't have the staff to do it. And if they don't have the staff, then where's our money going? Where's these operational costs going to? That's what I don't understand.
That's a darn good question. I'm gonna look into that, and I don't think that on our new rules, we have an issue about people leaving a boat there so they can show up and have a spot and claim it and not let other people use it. Because that doesn't sound like something we would approve of, I can tell you that.
The rules used to be in there, and they're not anymore. As far as leaving your stuff unattended, those were taken out.
Maybe Mr. Brown can address that while you're here.
Please.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I'd like Mr. Brown to address that for a second.
Michael?
Okay, let's see if I can remember everything she spoke about. First, the fee increases. The base fee for camping has not been increased since 2012. The increase she's talking about in 2022 was a requirement by state statute that we charge sales tax and lodging tax on campsites. So we were obligated to start collecting that. But the base revenue fee that the county has accrued has not changed since 2012. As for the abandoned campers and people parking them there, very hard to enforce that. Speaking with the sheriff's office, they were unable to enforce it because basically they said you either had to have somebody there watching it 24/7 or have cameras there because, you know, some people are like, well, I work at night, so I come out in the daytime, so it looks abandoned to other people. So if they're paying a camping fee, I guess kind of consider that they're paying their fee, so at least the county's collecting revenue on that. As for where the funds go, operationally, she's right. I don't have enough staff. I have 7 full-time staff. I have 2 full-time on the mountain, 2 full-time at the lake, 1 supervisor that oversees all 4 of those. I have an admin assistant and myself. Actually, I have 3 at the lake. I hired a new one. And then in the summertime, we hire seasonal caretakers. Out of 60 applications, I might get 3 that will work, and most of the time they don't last the summer. The reservation system was implemented right before I hired on, and I finished implementing that. I'm trying to change that with these new rules so that there are sites that we can have multiple camping units in, and so we would be allowed to designate those and allow multiple campers in there. The benefit to the reservation system is I don't have seasonal staff handling lots of money. Yes, we still do have first come, first served sites. Probably 45 to 50% of our sites at the lakes are still first come, first serve. So there's that option as well as a reservation option. The other benefit to the reservation system is if somebody does damage to the site and we find that, we can look up the last person that reserved that site and either red flag them or contact them to see if they were the ones that did the damage or somebody else was there. And our proposed fee increases, they won't cover all the expenses. Staff is expensive, vehicles are expensive, just shuttling staff out to the lake is expensive. And our increased fees, they'll still be less than the Forest Service, the state parks, multiple other places. So we're just trying to, I guess, keep up with the times. The inflation over the last 10 or 12 years is where these fee increases are proposed from. Did I miss anything?
No, but I do see we'd need to devise a way to deal with rule breakers, law violators, and not just let them get away with it.
Well, and we did have last summer, I guess it was this previous summer, you know, the sheriff was not gonna enforce the rules because we weren't a board of trustees under state statute, so they didn't enforce any of the rules last summer. So, you know, how do we work department-wise together when they have a directive to not enforce the parks rules because they're not considered legal rules? And that's why you guys did the emergency adoption in, I believe it was August. So it'll be good when we have formally adopted rules, we can partner together. I mean, the sheriff's department's in the same position as the parks department. They don't have enough staff. The number of acres they have to cover with 1 or 2 deputies for a weekend, that's pretty difficult. And my seasonal staff and my full-time staff, when they go check camping permits and whatnot, we can't go through a campsite twice a day. We can't hardly even hit a campsite once a day. It's basically every other day because there's so many campsites to cover and we don't have the manpower to get to all of them in one day.
Mr. Chairman. Michael, how many people do you have out at the lake now for caretakers?
Right now I have 3 full-time staff positions and then I have the ability to hire 1 seasonal staff now for the summer. But currently I have 1 staff member as of this morning. I have 1 full-time member out there right now. So I'm looking to fill positions.
Michael,
Mr. Chairman,
wait a
I
minute,
just
wait-
wanted to make sure she had her
Wait a minute,
questions
wait a
answered.
minute. I was gonna answer
Yeah.
one of her questions. In 2022, the reason for the increase was because the lodging tax went in, and that brought that up from 10 to 12 because it just basically rounded. That's what that increase was. It wasn't actually an increase directly from the Parks Board. It was just a pass on. So unfortunately, I don't understand why we pay lodging tax for camping sites, but we have to.
And it wasn't just the Parks Department, it was like Fairgrounds had to do it, everybody had to do it
Yeah.
at that point.
So
Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering if she had any other questions.
So on that, and media doesn't always get things right, but they did specify it was the base rate that was increased. He did tell me about the lodging and taxes, and I should have.
don't believe everything the media.
I know, that's why I
publishes.
said the media doesn't always get everything right. So, and I had told Mr. Brown that it said base rate, and he said, no, they were lodging and taxing. So I appreciate that you
They were lodging and
verified that.
taxing, yes.
Okay. With the staff part that he's discussing, we have 3 lakes and 1 mountain. How are 5 people managing that? He said that he's hiring more, but how many people should a staff hold or, position for all those parks? Is just my question. And, me and Mr. Brown have talked about, well, state parks have these higher fees. Well, I camp at Boysen now more than anything because they take care of their state park. You have clean campsites, you have weeds that are mowed down. So I feel like the county is trying to change our parks to state parks, but they're not state parks. And that's why people stay here, because it's cheaper. It's, you have, Alcoa is a bad example because that's overcrowded, but Pathfinder, you have freedom at Pathfinder that you don't at Alcoa. Everybody is back to back. He said that there's 40 to 50 open camp spots, just drive in, don't even have to do the reservation system. They are not good camp spots. They're actually pretty horrible, especially on the west end. There's only a couple of good sites past the marina. But other than that, everything is rocky. You can't go to those campsites. So I would take those out of consideration. So that's all.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're adjourned.
Okay, trustee comments.